Well, Coach Rivera, you're gearing up to make a trip back to Charlotte for a special event with Veterans Bridge Home. What is it about that organization that makes you want to dedicate your time to them?
Well, first and mostly importantly is because it serves our veteran community. Veteran Bridge Homes connects the veterans and their families with a new community in the state that they're transitioning into. It's very difficult going someplace where you really don't have a lot of connections. And that's what the Veterans Bridge Home is all about, is trying to connect the veterans and their family with a new community.
And your father dedicated over 30 years of his life to serving our country. How did that, growing up in that household, maybe shape your values and how you've coached and just how you do life in general?
Well, I think the big thing, more than anything else, is you see how the military community really takes care of themselves as much as they can. And then their service is selfless. It's all about the country. They did everything they can. And unfortunately, some even had the ultimate sacrifice for our country. But when you give of yourself so freely, you deserve to be taken care of eventually by the people that you serve. And that's what this is. It's an opportunity to give back to the veterans that did so much for us.
And for you, I feel like you're always making a trip back to Charlotte and still giving back to our community here. Why is that important for you and your family?
It's very important for Stephanie and I, and quite honestly for our kids as well, is because we really loved Charlotte. We really did. I mean, we were treated so well, and the people respected us in terms of always being there to support us. You guys know about the fire we had in our home back in 2015, and just the way the community reached out to us. And so it's really one of those things that we need to give back to you folks, and that's because we really do love the Queen City of Charlotte.
And for you this year, stepping into an analyst role, getting into some TV, what has that been like for you, and how are you enjoying it?
It's been interesting. I will tell you that, that as well. It's just, it gives me a different perspective to look at the games right now. And it's been very interesting watching the season that's progressed. And, it's been exciting. One thing I have learned is that, I'm not criticized like I have been in the past, which is kind of a nice thing. But it's been really cool. It has been.
All right, I'm going to ask you to be my analyst for a bit in this segment, but if you take a look at the situation here in Carolina with the Panthers, obviously a heavy week last week with making the decision to sit Bryce Young and start Andy Dalton. What's your take on that decision, and then how it all played out on Sunday with Dalton leading the Panthers to a win?
Well, it was a very bold and courageous move, I think, that the organization had to make. And I went through the same thing in 2020 when I was in Washington. I sat down a high draft pick at quarterback, and we went with some veterans, including Taylor Heineke and Alex Smith, and they got us into the playoffs. So it's about winning, and I love the way that Coach Canales stepped up, the way he handled it, and really making sure everybody understood it's not just about one player, but it's about all 53 players. And you've got to do your best to give these guys an opportunity to believe that everything you're doing is to win. And so I thought Coach handled that very nicely, and then I really loved what he said after the game. And that was really about talking about the process. And right now, having to sit Bryce is just this part of Bryce's process of learning and growing. How he handles it, how he comes out of it, that will be up to him. And it'll say a lot about who he is as a young man and a young football player. And I think he's a very talented guy that just needs a little more time to grow. And you got a guy like Andy Dalton, who's a veteran, who's done some really good things in this league. And has been a winner in this league, can help this football team a lot and can help set the future up very brightly for this organization. So I'm going to hold my breath and continue to cheer for them. But like I said, I really like what they're doing. I think that was a very bold and courageous move that the team had to make, and they did it. It paid dividends already. So we'll see what happens as we go forward.
All right, Coach, appreciate your time as always. Looking forward to you being back in the Queen City next month.
Thank you.